Hi, thanks for joining me. It's good to see you. My name is Jarrell. I develop games full-time for a living. Today I want to discuss the latest Meat Canyon video. It is a video about a developer named Pirate Software. I'd done a video about a week or two ago explaining that I don't want to make any more videos discussing Pirate Software. The internet is dogpiling on this guy, and I really have no interest in insulting or making fun of people. That's not something that I find interesting. You certainly may. You can make fun of this guy all you want, and I'm not saying don't make fun of this guy. Do it all you want. I mean, it's the internet. Have fun. But for me personally, I don't find that interesting or fun. What I want to discuss today is the code that we see in this Meat Canyon video. Now, to preface this, I am a huge Meat Canyon fan. I've been watching Meat Canyon for a few years now, and he also has a second channel, Papa Meat, which is very fun. If you have not watched these channels before, I just want to share a bit of an introduction for you. Do not put these videos on when you are about to eat a meal. I've made that mistake a couple times throughout my life. Is I'll put myself on lunch or dinner and I think, oh great, there's a new Meat Canyon video. Rookie mistake. Don't do that. So I really enjoy Meat Canyon videos. I find them deeply beautiful, and in the future I'd like to make a video that just discusses why Meat Canyon videos are so beautiful. What I want to discuss is this code here. Is the code functional? What is wrong with it? And how can you rewrite this so that it actually functions in GameMaker Studio, which Pirate Software uses to create his game, Heartbound, which is still in development. And again, I don't want to say anything to make fun of this guy. It's still in development. So I want to show you how you can make this code actually be functional, but I will also show you in C# for Unity. I work most comfortably in C-based languages, C, C#, C++, except Objective-C. That one can go die for all I care if you've ever had to work. If you're accustomed to C languages and then you suddenly had to work in Objective-C, maybe you've had a similar experience to what I have, but that language can go die. So I've never used GameMaker Studio. I've used the oldest versions of GameMaker. I started with 3 and then used 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I'm comfortable using those, but GameMaker Studio is the new version and it's very different. I've never used it before. I've just booted it up for the first time here and it looks totally different. I don't recognize what I'm looking at all, but I'd like to show you how well designed GameMaker Studio is and how you can write this code, how easy it is to write this code, so that if you want to make your own games, here's a bit of a start for you. I'll also show you in Unity as well, which is the engine that I use the most. So what is wrong with this code here? And I'm not saying Meat Canyon doesn't know how to program. I think it's just interesting. It's funny. It's a visual gag, but I don't know if this is part of the joke where none of this is functional from my understanding, unless this is some sort of special super secret programming language called Pirate Sharp or Pirate Plus Plus. It could be something that I don't know. This could be something that exists, but to me this is non-functional. This doesn't mean anything. So what I'm going to do is break down what's wrong with it and how to make it functional. It looks like they're trying to establish a class. A class is basically contains a number of functions and properties or variables, and you can reference those values when you have an instance of that class. You have classes in C-based languages like C#. In GameMaker Studio, you use GML, which is their own programming language. They do not have classes, but they do have structs. They can achieve a similar outcome to classes. A struct is a collection of variables, and it looks like you can sort of put some, I've seen some putting some sort of, mathematical functions in there and referencing those. But again, I'm not super familiar with the latest version of GameMaker Studio, but it looks relatively easy to understand, and I will show you that. So what they want here is basically a struct which has a number of values. The values of this struct, you should have an instance of this when you create an object. You declare any values that object has, and you always need to declare your values upon object creation. It would be, it'd be stupid. It'd be, I have choice words, but I want to keep language professional here. It'd be very stupid to declare values after object creation. Everything should be declared at creation. It makes no sense. The problem with declaring them after creation is you could end up accidentally declaring them multiple times. That can cause issues. It's illogical. It makes no sense. So you want all of this struct to be created on object creation, and you want to set up the values. The hunger level defines, it looks like it's a float value instead of an integer. So in C# and Unity, you put an F after there, just say this is a float value. It looks like they want this to be a comment so that you can say, oh, just for the programmer's reference, if the value is 1, then you would say that they're crying. It looks like they want this value to be clamped as well. There should be a limit. Either it's 0 or it's 1.0, and the values go from there. There's more efficient ways to define that. In Unity, you can have ways to define that and have them clamped. I'm sure you could do that here as well by assigning the value. So, you define the sleepiness with another float value. Now, here's what's wrong with mood. Mood is a string value, and having a string value does not help you. It does not mean anything. Your mood value should be tied to some internal logic. This does not reference any internal logic, which means you can input an arbitrary value which has no intrinsic meaning or value. This means that, oh, let's display the stats of baby. The mood could be set to garbage. It could be, any number of combination of letters and numbers, and it's useless. It doesn't mean anything. What you should do is reference, say, for example, some internal logic, and you would assign a number of moods that are hard-coded into the game logic to say, 0 is neutral, 1 is angry, 2 is sad, 3 is disenchanted, 4 is nonchalant. Whatever, how many moods you want, but they will be hard-coded into the engine, into an internal reference database, so that instead of putting fussy, you would say mood is equal to 0. Then any other object that references that value can check the database, which you can update on a global level, and say, if the mood is 0, you know that it's neutral. If the mood is 1, you know that it's sad, because there's internal logic somewhere that every single piece of code in the game can reference and say, okay, I know what this is. Doing it this way, where it's set to a string value, does not help you. It does not accomplish anything. So that's bad. This is terrible. Needs. You're trying to define multiple values within the needs. What this should be is, this is nothing. Your needs, again, similar to how you have an internal database set by number values, your needs, you should have an internal database that are numbered, that you can reference, that have definitions. In your database, you have, I don't even know how you would do that in GameMaker, but 0 is breastfeeding, 1 is burping, 2 is cuddles, 3 is a slap in the face, 4 is go outside and look at the sunshine. So your needs should be numbers so that they can reference it, and every object can have shared logic. They can share the same references, because this is not even a string value at this point. This is nothing, because this is text that does not reference anything. It's broken. That would crash your program, because we don't see that referenced anywhere else. So it looks like it's referencing a variable called breastfeeding, but that has not been assigned. So and the minus sign already doesn't do anything. So that looks like it's a bullet point. This is terrible. So this doesn't accomplish anything really. You could have a list of numbers, a list of integer values, or you could have an array so that there's a limit. A list is a number of values with an arbitrary amount of values in it, so you can keep adding to a list. An array is a preset number of values, so you can have an array of 10 integers, so you can have up to 10 needs. That's how I would personally do it. So there's very little chance for things to go wrong logically if you have a set limit for a number of needs. It's logical to consider those as well. So this is where feeding this is feeding is hurts my head looking at this because I don't understand what they're trying to accomplish here. This kind of makes sense. This is baby is you could be a class. It's a struct. It could be a class, and you can have instances of that. But this looks like you have feeding is not an object. You can't just create an object and the object is feeding. That makes no sense. This is, it seems more like a function. A function you can call that. You would create the script. Objects can call the function. So here it just seems like they've created a struct, so we're just going to do it that way. I think that's what they want. Again, similar, the method is a string value, which doesn't make any sense. That it hurts me looking at that, and this should be that should be okay. Caregiver makes sense. Much like how baby can be an object and you can have an instance of that, caregiver has similar thing. But the breakdown here is going to be extremely similar to what goes wrong here. You have a float value, you have a position, but again, it's a string, which you shouldn't, there's no reason to do it like that. That's bad. Hydration, reminder, I don't know. This thing's always blocking. So pressure, letdown latency. I can't see the values that are there. I don't know if I scrub around, will we be able to see that? Reminder. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and then there is, okay, so we can kind of see that. So if we combine our knowledge there, we can sort of see everything that goes into it. Okay, so let's go ahead and start rewriting this code in Game Maker Studio. Right, so here we are in Game Maker Studio, and I'm just going to jump right into this. Again, I've never used this version of Game Maker before. I've only used the old one, so I'm just going to right-click on Objects, Create, and it looks like we can create an object. Here we go. Now, it looks like we have a node-based system. You want to give that something, I'll just call it gameplay, logic, whatever. Doesn't really matter. We click on Add Event, and we'll click Create. It looks like I've got something here that I'll just ignore. And it looks like this node has opened up something else. Okay, so now we have logic here. This is very different from the Game Maker that I'm used to in the past. So this will be executed when the object is created. So setting up a struct in Game Maker should be pretty easy. Again, it's just a collection of variables that you can reference. So we're going to take a look at the MeatCanyon video again, and it looks like it's pretty simple. If we want to define a struct, there we go. We have a struct, and I don't know if this will manually put that tab in there. So what we want is hunger level, and we will define that. So they have this at 0.9. We'll put a comma there and then down to the next line. Very simple. We have sleepiness. We have this to set the value to 0.4, comma, down to the next line. Okay, we have mood, and we'll set that to, and again, you should not be setting this to a string value, but just for this example, we will do that. And then when we show you an example of this in C# for Unity, I'll show you a more robust way of doing it. And then needs, I'm not sure. Can I do it? Is this how you do it? How do you do it? Yeah, this is how you do an array here. So I'm going to set this up as an array just so it's functional. Breastfeeding. Here we go, and we have burping, okay, and ketos. There we go. Those are all the values for baby. Good, 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 good. Oops, let's go ahead and fix that. Right, and feeding. We're going to set up feeding as a struct as well. I don't really understand this programmer's intention here. It's hard to make judgments when you don't understand someone else's code, their intentions. It looks like I don't have any errors here. If I were to compile this, it looks like it should be fine. So, method, again, this, I don't know why this is like that. Okay, breastfeeding. Dread. Okay. Done. So we just took all of the logic that we see in the Meat Canyon video and we've turned that into actual functional code. So this code is functional. I don't know how you want to implement it. I don't know what you want to use this for. This is function. This works. Okay, so now I will show you how to do this in Unity, where I can show you things a little bit more robust in terms of an actual functional game. Okay, let's go ahead and switch on over to Unity now. Okay, here we are in Unity. I've just created two classes here, baby and caregiver. We're going to go ahead and create the values, the stuff that we see in the Meat Canyon video here. So here we go. We're going to go, and our syntax is going to be a little bit different. What baby hasn't felt melancholic every once in a while, right? And actually, we're going to make these values public just so that it's accessible to other objects. Okay, public mood, and we're going to call this mood with a lowercase, and we're going to say that the default is mood.neutral. There we go. Now we have consistent internal logic. Other classes, other instances of other things can go ahead and reference mood here, so we don't just have free-floating, arbitrary string values. This is logical. We can work with that. Okay, now what we want to do is... Oh, fussy is supposed to be in there, isn't it? Oh, I see. Yeah, here we go. Fussy. There we go. By default, for some reason, the baby's fussy. Now, we want to have a function here, public, and instead of just calling it feeding, we're going to say it's perform feeding. The name of your function should be an action. It should be do something. It shouldn't just be the name of something. So we're going to say public void because we don't want to return any values. Okay. We're going to have to receive some arguments here. An argument is an input. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Here we go. Another... we're going to do another enum here. Feeding method. This makes sense. Okay. And we'll try this. We'll go bottle or breastfeeding. Okay. There we go. So... we want to have, okay. Feeding method, I use the word in as a prefix just so it's very clear. There's no mistake that you could make in feeding method. So I know if I reference in feeding method, I know exactly where it's referencing. It stops you from getting mixed up in confusion, referencing things that you don't want to. Okay, float. There we go. And float, spit up. Well, spit up, is that one word or two? You know? Is the glass 1/4 full or 3/4 empty? So now we have a function perform feeding with a number of arguments that can be, you can input that the values. This is reusable code, and all of your logic will go in here. Logic goes here. Oh, I also wanted to point something out here. On the Meat Canyon video for hunger level, there was this thing that said, you know, there's a hash, you know, 1.0 equals crying. That actually doesn't work here. That's going to cause a compilation error because that pound sign doesn't really mean anything. It looks like they want to do a comment there. What you want to do is 2 slashes for a comment. I mean, you could do an arbitrary, and you could have more slashes, all the slashing you want. You can omni slash that all day long, but 2 slashes is what you need there. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and take a look at our caregiver here. And let's go ahead and just quickly get our values into our caregiver here. We have public float. And again, public means that other objects will be able to access this or other instances and whatever. Okay, we have fatigue level is equal to 0.85 F. This keyboard is so small. Okay, position. Okay, we want an enumerator for position. So let's say public enum position. But see, this is bad. This is bad logic and bad coding, because just saying position does not give enough information to whoever is looking at it, whoever's reading the code. It's very bad. You don't know what that actually means. So it's best to give your values, all of these, the names have to be meaningful. Giving these meaningless names is extremely bad on so many levels, because whoever's programming won't know what those means. It's too vague, right? So I'm going to change position into seating position so that programmatically you can look at it and say, oh, I know exactly what that is. So you can say upright reclined. Okay, there we go. Now we can have that public seating position is equal to seating position dot. Oh, oops. Hold on. But we're just going to call that value position, just because that's what it is. That's what it is in the Meat Canyon video, so that's what it will be. Okay. Hydration remind. So this is so frustrating looking at this, the hydration reminder, because it doesn't mean anything, and then it has other values below it that are indented in, but we're just going to put them in anyway. Okay, we have public pool hydration reminder is equal to true. Okay. Look, we're going to need some values. Okay, public enum pressure. I'm going to call that clamp pressure. Okay. We're going to call it gentle, medium, hard, and brutal. There we go. Let's get a comma in there. Okay. Clamp pressure. Okay, we'll have public bool. Oh, sorry. Public clamp pressure. We'll just call that pressure is equal to clamp pressure dot gentle. There we go. All right. And let down latency, you know, that's these pressure and let down latency should be part of they should be part of the arguments for a function. It's kind of, I'm getting really frustrated looking at this actually. Okay. I'm trying to just wind it back. This doesn't have to be, I think it was 3.2, wasn't it? Sure. We'll call that. Okay, now we have feedback. This is so frustrating. Okay, let's just call this, we're going to create another class and just call it feed. Okay. All right, we're going to do public Ugh. This is actively irritating me. This because it's not actually setting out to achieve anything. It's so nebulous and vague. It doesn't have an actual intention of doing anything. Just having that doesn't mean anything. Okay. Eye contact. Okay. Let's say distant. Distant. There we go. There. That is what the code should look like. That's it. That's all of it. We have baby. And we have baby. It has this function. You can call that function. That can be called from other things. Oh, hold on. We have to public feedback. So it is returning feedback. You see on baby, it's returning void, so it's not returning any value. It just performs logic in there. For the get feedback function, we are going to, I mean, this is not it. You shouldn't. Okay. I'm gonna do it what you're gonna see everyone in tutorials say, oh, create a new feedback, put it in there. They'll say like, oh, new feedback, new feedback. I've developed on platforms where you have to be extremely efficient. I don't want to do it that way. What I'm gonna do is just this feedback, current feedback. And the reason why I do it like that is because when you do it this way, you're constantly creating like that. You're creating new, you can get memory leaks. Say, for example, you called get feedback from another object and it's in, say, for example, like a for each loop. And you called that, and then for some reason, logically, you're allowed to call it like 1,000 times. But then what if you have multiple objects, each calling that 1,000 times? If you do it this way, you're going to get memory leaks. And it's specific to Unity. It's just a problem. It causes slowdown. That can impact your frame rate. It can cause stuttering, memory leaks. So what I do is I just created a reference there. Okay, that's just a property of it. So now it's a property of the class, and I will say return current feedback. Okay, and then logic goes here if you want any logic. That is it. 100%, this is exactly how this should look, how this code should look if you were creating this in Unity with C#. If you were to create this in GameMaker, again, hold on, I need to look at the reference again here. Again, the Meat Canyon video had the pound sign and then 1.0 equals crying. Again, this is supposed to be a comment. A comment has no impact on the game logic. It's only for the developer to understand what's going on or to leave notes, and comments are extremely important. They're some of the most important part of a programming language. This is broken because the pound sign doesn't actually have any functions, so it's going to cause problems if you have a look. It says 16 errors. So what we'll do is take out that pound sign and put // . Now it is a proper comment. When it is a comment, that is green. Now you can comment out code. So let's say you wanted to take some things out. It's best to not delete code because you may find that you want it later on, or you need to do some testing, find out where there's a problem or a glitch. So instead of deleting code, never delete your code. When you're debugging and then you're trying to find out what an issue is, or you're experimenting and trying different things, comment your code out. Comment it out, do not delete it. That way you can always come back to it and you have it again later on when you need it. So here's what it should look like if that would be made in GameMaker. And here's what This is way more functional. This is significantly more functional because we have these enumerators that have internal logic. Maybe there's a way to do it, you know, in Game Maker. But yeah, that's it. There we go. I mean, you could just assign number values to it and then have definitions and say, oh, 1 is this, 2 is this, 3 is this. Is basically what an enumerator is. Thank you very much for spending some time with me. I hope this has been helpful to you. Maybe it was entertaining. I'm not sure. This video wasn't really that funny. I was genuinely trying to be helpful to you guys if you're interested in programming. But that is my analysis and my review of the MeatCanyon code for whatever Pirate Software was making. And I think it was related to breastfeeding. So there we go. That's how you make that functional. Maybe it was part of the joke that whatever he wrote there didn't actually work. Maybe it wasn't functional. Maybe that's part of the joke. If so, you know, sometimes jokes just go over your head. Thanks very much for spending some time with me today. Okay, I think some of my upcoming videos, I think I'm just going to find some just funny stuff to talk about. Take care, everyone. Be well. I'll see you later.